Hello everyone, thank you for tuning into my channel. So, time for a spoiler-free review of Words of Radiance, Book 2 of the Stormlight Archives. Similar to its predecessor, as you can tell, this is a pretty chunky book, and it is amazing. Oops. Okay, there we go. Now, let's start off again with the world building. I will say, the world building is even better than The Way of Kings. However, some of that could be because in The Way of Kings, it has to introduce you to everything, which can seem like a lot, while in Words of Radiance, builds off that and expands on it, such as a further in-depth look into shard blades, shard plates, chasm fiends, the chasm itself, etc. And especially my personal favorite, learning more about the Parshendi, because in Way of Kings, I thought they were interesting and cool and wanted to hear more about them. But I especially love in Words of Radiance more detail into them and the POV segments of Ishoni and Venli, and I don't know. I just thought it was exciting to hear more about the culture and how their fears and worrying about fighting the Alethi and how it drives them into a desperate action, which ironically pushes them to a place which runs contrary to the reason why they assassinated King Gavilar at the start of the Way of Kings. And speaking of kings biting the dust, Words of Radiance has a prologue from a different view of Gavilar's assassination, this time from Yasna. And I'll be honest, I don't always find these prologues as exciting. I'd rather get right into it, but I do enjoy the nice twists and turns and the different looks on these events and how people experience it differently, and to get these insights into the day that he was killed, which led up to this war and to the future events of the Stormlight Archive. And one thing I especially love about Brandon's world building is the detail he goes into it in crafting everything, such as many authors might be able to do one or two segments, such as they might focus on the shard blade or the shard plate or the Parshendi or the chasm fiends or just the general atmosphere of the world, while Brandon focuses on all of them and combines them together in such a great, fascinating, detailed world. This could be a world that people live in. Obviously, it does kind of seem weird that humans and horses would be in the same world as these creatures that have shells and carapaces, such as Kazafiends, Chulls, Axehounds, you name it. But that's a plot point in Oathbringer that comes up, so I will not be going into that here. Anywho, back to the world building. Again, while I didn't mention the Parshendi, I especially love how it goes in a little bit into the history, not a ton, but the connection to the Voidbringers, and also just the general atmosphere of them. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I always and I still want to learn more about them, especially coming into Winds and Truth, which comes out in December. But again, this is about Words of Radiance, so let's focus on that. And while I dabble a little bit into the world building, let's get on to the characters. Unlike Way of Kings, which focused on Kaladin, Words of Radiance focuses on Shallan and her past, and the flashback chapters are, as you might have guessed, about her. While I don't think they had an oomph to the story as Kaladin's did, they do culminate in the final flashback for her, which I think is great, and I love the setup for that. I just wish there was more that tied that directly into the story, like Kaladin's did, and like Dalinar's does in Oathbringer. And however, that doesn't drag it down too much, as overall, I still enjoy the story. By themselves, the flashbacks are kind of interesting, but outside of that, I just love the growth Shallan goes through. I know some people be like, but yeah, Shallan was really mean and whatnot. I mean, sure, she wasn't mean when she was trying to have an air of authority and seem like she was in control, but come on. It's the girl's first time trying to do this, trying to show that she can be in control or she is an authority, especially since she's terrified after, well, kind of sporadically, a ship crashes and she ends up joining a group of slavers, and she's trying to make sure she can get to the Shattered Plains. So of course, she's going to struggle a little bit. She's not going to get it perfectly, come off nice and polite and whatnot. And also, I will say, Kaladin can be kind of a jerk too. I don't see many people complaining about that. So I mean, yeah, Shallan is a good character. Sure, she has faults, and she isn't really funny and witty, but I still very much enjoyed her journey and how she gets to the Shattered Plains, and especially her interactions with Adolin. Granted, Sanderson isn't always the best at romance. I do think Shallan and Ellen's interactions were sweet, and I enjoyed that, and especially Loved how she kind of concocted a way to get into Subirial, whatever. That one guy, that one high prince that starts with an S in his war camps. And speaking of characters, let's get back to Kaladin. I loved his arc, this book, and just the rage and anger he gets on seeing Amaran, the man who basically ruined his life, and essentially got his little brother Tien killed, got a lot of his squad killed, and Kaladin sold in slavery. And no, The Way of Kings is book 1, so this is freely open to spoilers for that one. Anywho, Kaladin's anger is understandable, and I love how that conflicts with his oaths to protect anybody and the struggle he goes through for that. I especially enjoyed his interaction with Mawash and how his friend's anger heavily influenced Kaladin's own, and contained both, and sort of how they both build off each other, the hatred for the Light Eyes, and that very much pays off at the end, and seeing how both of them end up turning in distinct ways. I won't get into it, but I really think it builds up for the conclusion and Kaladin's ultimate choice and decision. I will say though, as much as I enjoyed it, I do feel like some of it could have been cut down a little bit. Mostly the parts when Shallan and Kaladin were in the chasm trying to get back to the war camps. Sure, it's interesting, but I don't know. I think that chapter could have been drastically reduced. But hey, let me know your opinions. Now, on to my personal favorite part of Words of Radiance. Okay, one of my personal favorite parts, but anyway, let's get on to it. Adolin's duel against 4 Shardbearers. While I love the action and love the drama intensifies in it, especially what happens at the end to poor Kaladin, this does have one of my favorite lines in the entire series, which is Kaladin saying, "Honor is dead, but I will see what I can do." And I don't know, you can just feel the epicness in that when Kaladin goes to assist Adolin in the ploy that was clearly set up to sabotage his and Dalinar's plans. And I really enjoyed especially how the interaction between Dalinar and Sadeas, since at the end of The Way of Kings, Sadeas left Dalinar, Adolin, and their armies to dead, and Kaladin and Bridge 4 heroically saved them. These two basically don't trust each other, obviously, and they each trying to usurp and outmaneuver the other. And I don't think that's cool how that plays off. And I think unlike in some of his other books, Brandon does a great job in Words of Radiance, showing the political strife and tension and making it interesting. And also speaking of Dalinar, I enjoyed more looks into the visions he has, and also just the cryptic writing on the walls. You get a good feel of his worry, his anxiety, his concern about this, and especially his concern about uniting Elfkar against the oncoming threat. Now, as characters go, again, I loved a lot of the side characters. I do still think there are too many minor bridgemen, but I get that. With the Bridge 4, I believe there's about 30 of them. That is understandable. I do wish some of them would cut down more to give more time to some of the more important but less mentioned bridgemen, if that makes sense. Although some of the minor ones do start to die, I just wish that some of them would have been more combined into more important bridgemen, just so we'd get more out of them. Don't get me wrong though, the character interaction and growth we have with them is great. We get to see little foreshadowing tidbits of Taft's struggle with addiction. I also love Relaine. Kind of a spoiler since he does introduce himself as Shen in book 1. At least, well, Kaladin and Bridge 4 call him Shen in The Way of Kings. I won't go into the rest of it, but also as a Parshendi, I really think it's interesting what he's doing there, and what happens with him at the ending and his desperation. I also enjoy the deeper dive we get into the magic system and Kaladin's studying and learning to figure out how to use lashings. I will get into that a little bit, my nitpicks though, but overall I found that pretty fascinating. Now as for other characters such as Navani and Shonai, I like them, I thought they were pretty cool. I will say overall, I wasn't a fan of the interludes. Aside from Taravangian and Shonai, I didn't care much for the interludes in either The Way of Kings or Words of Radiance. Not that they're not interesting, because some of them are, but I don't know. I just think they could have been left out. Although I will say, some of them are starting to get more important, and I do enjoy the further look into Roshar and what's happening all around them. Even beyond the character development, I do very much enjoy how they interact with each other. And you go back to Shallan, just her attempted subterfuge of the Ghost Bloods, getting into them, and how she starts to develop different personas. I think Brandon does an expert job of showing that, and of keeping each character distinct, because I feel like with POVs, a lot of times the authors, at least when I was starting out writing several years ago, I always struggled making my characters, especially point of view characters, distinct. And Brandon does a great job of keeping Shallan, Adolin, Dalinar, and Kaladin's voices all separate and their own unique individuals, and they don't blend together. I just love how he expertly crafts that. As for me, I'm a sucker for multiple point of view books, especially something this grand and epic, where you will need to see different views on the conflict and what's happening in the world. Anywho, as much as I loved Words of Radiance, let's get on to the nitpicks. Nitpick number 1. As I kind of mentioned, as much as interesting as I found the lashings and Kaladin learning about the magic system, I do feel like they could have been condensed or cut down. There are too many points for me. It's like, okay, can we just get on to the main part of the story? Story is so exciting. I don't care about Lopin joking about getting lashed to a wall or that drags out of them. Yeah, sure, a little bit of it. Okay, I get it. It shows their personality and character, which is fun. But I would just rather get on to the main plot. And I don't know, while I enjoyed how they showed it, I think it could have been reduced to add on to the rest of the story. Now, for nitpick number 2. I mentioned this already, so I'll keep it short. Too many not important bridgemen, especially since we have more of Lopin's cousins coming. And I enjoy the little aspect of Lopin about how he keeps having cousin after cousin after cousin. And I think that dynamic's fun, but I mean, at least so far, they don't seem like important characters, then they could have just been removed or replaced with other minor characters. Now, on to nitpick number 3. Again, I think I did kind of touch onto this, but there were points where I felt it dragged, at least for me. I think it could have been cut down. Specifically the chapter where Shallan and Kaladin are in the chasms. Although I do get it is a bonding moment for them and helps them get over the mutual disdain for each other, I don't think the chapter should have been condensed. Although I say that, but the length of Words of Radiance does help us get into the mindset of these characters, help us feel and care about them, and we might not have that if Words of Radiance was 50 to 100 pages shorter. And I love Words of Radiance. It's a big and great book, and I enjoyed pretty much almost every aspect of it. So, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, though perhaps there are parts that could have been cut down, although maybe that would have detracted from the book. We won't know, and that's just my opinion on it right now. But overall, it does not affect my score of Words of Radiance. And I believe those 3 are my really only major nitpicks of Words of Radiance. As you can tell, I really enjoyed this book. As I said too with Way of Kings, I loved the ending and the final showdown in the Shattered Plains, and the reveal of the Oath Gate, and the reveal of what Yazda and Shallan have been searching for in this epic moment, this epic clash between the humans and the Parshendi, and the coming of the Everstorm, and it's just great. You all have to read it. I can't give it justice. However, that does remind me. Nitpick number 4. I won't say who. Granted, you might be able to guess who it was from what I've said if you haven't read the book before. This does have one of my least favorite tropes, and that is a character seemingly dying only to be revealed to not be dead. I just hate it when authors do that. It takes so much away from the emotional oomph to that character's death. I want to give Brandon credit on this though, because as much as I don't like that trope, I do think it makes sense that there are plenty of times that happen in real life where it might seem like someone died or is dead, but they're actually still alive, or they actually didn't get killed. As that happens in real life, it makes sense it would happen in fictional worlds too. So I won't really hold that against the book too much, especially as it's logical and makes sense, and how this character survived is explained. And it's not like this character was decapitated and grew their head back. So I won't focus too much on that for the reasons I stated. Now, for a moment that will probably be shocking to absolutely no one, for my rating, I give Words of Radiance a 5 out of 5. And on to my favorite characters. Not a lot has changed, though I do have a couple additions. Maybe I should try to limit it to 5 or 10. Yeah, well. Anywho, we have Kaladin, Shallan, Renarin, Adolin, Dalinar, Teft, Syl, and Pattern. And there we have it, my review of Words of Radiance, Book 2 of the Stormlight Archive. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you like it? Dislike it? Do you agree with my nitpicks? Think I'm crazy? Please help me find out, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a good day. Bye.